Hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the HOSR Story Hour. My name is Jen Wesson. I'm the Executive Director of the Head of the Schuylkill Regatta. And on behalf of the Board of Directors and the Committee 50, we welcome you to our 20th Story Hour. 20 is kind of a landmark number. So a big round of applause to our committee members for putting this forward for the last three years. We really appreciate their hard work in bringing these stories to this community. So since the Paris Olympics are approaching, I think it's 99 days, right, till opening day, we thought it was a must to produce an episode celebrating notable U.S. Olympic rowers through their individual experiences at the Olympics. I can recall, even as a youngster, the excitement and energy of the Olympics approaching. And I can remember a particular summer that I had my wisdom teeth out, and I took full advantage of that recovery time to watch hours of Olympic coverage. So it was an experience that I actually look fondly upon. But I know I'm not alone and in the longing to know how this small elite group of athletes felt as they approached their own Olympic Games and how they kept perspective in that biggest stage in the world. Their favorite memories were from land and water and how it affected their lives going forward. So tonight we have Jim Dietz. He's going to lead us through a brief history of the Olympics and how they have changed over the years, and then moderate a conversation with our Olympians that are joining us this evening. And while we have a number of Olympians that we singled out to join us, we know we have probably additional Olympians on the phone with us this evening. So feel free to type your name as an Olympian into the chat room so everybody knows that you are here. I'm just going to review a couple housekeeping items before we get started, just to help with the sound and the flow of things. We keep this Zoom format. This started out of COVID, and we've had such success with these story hours, and folks have loved them so much. And a part of it is because we get to see one another. And so we've kept this Zoom format, even though it can be a little clunky. So just be sure that if you do unmute yourself, that you're cognizant of any background noise that you're putting out. But it's really cool to see the storytellers not only sharing with us, but we're sharing with them and giving them recognition and appreciation for their contributions and their successes in our community. So again, I've muted everyone to eliminate that background noise. You can unmute yourself at any point in time. Use that chat room to ask questions or even to add to a story that someone's talking about. We will run to about 8:15 at the latest, and we will allow time for verbal questions at the end of the presentation. I just want to let everyone know that I am recording this, so it is available for those that are unable to join us tonight. And we'll be sure to send this out to everyone, the link, once it's posted. I will send that out. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Jim Dietz, our facilitator and fellow Committee 50 member, to review a history of the Olympics and introduce our Olympians. So have fun with us tonight. Welcome.
All right. Thanks. Can everybody hear me? I'm good.
Yeah, maybe just a little louder, closer.
All right. So I did look at the registration, and there are several Olympians that aren't speaking tonight. I noticed that are on the call: Stan Trzynski, Bill Miller, Carol Brown, Laura Haynes, and probably others. So my function tonight is to give you an idea of how the Olympic movement is and what it's all about, what gives grandeur. And so today, the Olympics have evolved to the largest sporting celebration in the number of sports on the program that present and the number of people from different nations present at the same time. That's a bit overwhelming to conceive in constructing such an enormous event. 10,000 athletes all over the world, with a following probably greater than the Super Bowl. Not officials, coaches, support staff along with the team. Today's games are held in interval or in winter, but are all part of framework, which is that of the Olympic movement. The of the Olympic movement is to promote the practice of sport all over the world and value.
Talking now.
An event.
The audio is bad.
Are we good? All right.
Are you on a, Jim, are you on a mic? Your audio is going in and out a little bit.
I'm using my phone. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. It's just going in and out a little bit. Maybe bring it a little closer to you.
I'll try. Okay. Things that makes it such an event is its ancient history. Ancient games were last held in Greece in 393 AD and were ended under the rule of the Roman Emperor Theodosius. At least years preceding the last event. Today we have only 124 years pressing modern.
Hey, Jim, I'm going to interrupt you for a moment because I think we're having some trouble hearing you. You're going in and out. Is there a way that you can connect to your computer audio?
I don't know.
Once it's heated up.
Can you hear me? Is this okay?
Yeah, I think that's going to be better.
All right. All right. Good. All right.
Okay.
If all right, here we go again. All right. If you're looking at the urn above, the athletes competed in the nude. Several women's events were added over time with shorter races. They were allowed to wear clothing. The women were. All right. History repeated itself with women's rowing starting in 1976, racing at 1,000 meters and turning to 2,000 meters in 1980 and beyond. So things have progressed over time. They realize women can do the whole distance. Now, the next point is very important and worth noting. Sacred and respected throughout Greece, the Olympic truce announced the messengers before the games allowed spectators, athletes, and officials to travel to and from the Olympiad safely through numerous battle zones. Today, the Olympic truce is the subject of United Nations resolution calling for a halt in all hostilities during the period of the games and a search for a means of peaceful resolution in areas of tension. The athletes who support this initiative are invited to sign the truce wall in the Olympic Village. All right. Now, the games were named for their location at Olympia, the sacred site located near the western coast of the Peloponnesian Peninsula of southern Greece. Their influence was so great that ancient historians began to measure time by 4-year increments in between Olympic Games, which were known as Olympiads. All right. And I know that the Olympic coaches on the call tonight will testify that they're writing their programs over 4-year periods. All right. The first modern Olympic Games were held in Greece in 1896 with 13 nations attending. It was the vision of Pierre de Coubertin, another French oarsman, who founded the modern Olympic movement. Another oarsman, William Henry Durnfield, the first Baron of Duisburg from England, shared de Coubertin's vision and helped with the 1908 Olympics. In 1894, Coubertin formed the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, to help build a peaceful and better world by educating young people through sport. He firmly believed that sport was the key to developing mental energy, and the games were a way to bring a world which had been at war far too often together, just as they had done in the feudal Greek states back in antiquity. This was also Socrates, what he professed about creating a strong mind with a strong body.
To me. Winning. Winning.
All right. The Olympics can also differentiate themselves from other championships because they have its Olympic charter and protocol, athletes opening, closing ceremonies. the release of white doves of peace, also from antiquity, the athlete's oath, the official's oath, the entrance of the flame and the lighting of the cauldron, the flame signifying purity. All right, next slide there. All right. I was hoping that Anita might be on the call tonight because she firmly believed that athletes need to be taught this ancient history and how we have evolved to where we are in modern times. All right. When she was named to the International Olympic Committee, the top 5, governing all Olympic sports, she was quoted as saying, "For 2 to 4 weeks, the village becomes the home of the elite athletes of the world. It was there that I realized that excellence comes in every shape, size, race, and sex. It was there that I realized that an Olympian is one who can respect every individual based on the effort that it takes to become an Olympian. It was there that I learned that each sport takes special skills and determination for a person to ascend to the top." All right, so there are several symbols of the Olympic movement. You're looking at the Olympic flag right now. The Olympic flag, the 5 rings signify the 5 continents of the world, and each one of those colors is represented in every flag of every nation that's part of the Olympic movement. The Olympic motto is Situs Altus Fortis. These 3 Latin words mean swifter, higher, stronger, symbolizing unity and exuberance of the human spirit. All right. The next slide is the Olympic Creed, which states, "In these Olympiads, the important thing is not the winning, but the taking part. What counts in life is not the victory, but the struggle. The essential thing is not to conquer, but to fight well." All right. The next slide is the March of Nations. All right. Where all athletes of the world walk into the Olympic Stadium. This began in 1908. Since that time, Greece will always lead the nations into the Olympic Stadium, and the host nation will come in last. All the rest move through alphabetically, and it takes for hours and hours and hours to get everybody into the stadium. All right. The next slide is one of Ralph Rose. And this one comes home to me because Ralph Rose was a shot putter from the New York Athletic Club. And he was the first person to carry the flag in the very first march into the Olympic stadiums in 1908 in England. As I said, he was a shot putter from my club. And at that time in Ireland, they have what they call the Troubles and home rule. And there was a real disdain for the English government at the time. The story has it that other weightlifters, also from my club, told Ralph that if he tipped the flag to King Edward VII, he would spend the rest of his time at the Olympics in the hospital. He held our flag high, upright, and never dipped it. King Edward and others were greatly offended, but just as we have today, the spin doctors got in there and came up with the statement, "The stars and stripes dip to no earthly king." Right. And that is Ralph there. Looks like a fine individual. All right. The next slide is of the Olympic flame. Was the sacred fire that was kept burning throughout the games. We see that all the time. It was and is a manifestation of the positive values that man has always associated with the symbolism of fire. Fire was said to be stolen from the god Prometheus and lit in front of the temple of Hera, the wife of Zeus. The torch relay highlights the announcement of the games and safe passage. So just this week, the flame was lit in Greece, and the first torch bearer that started the run was the Greek Olympic champion from the single sculls at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics just last year. But that torch relay, again, is signifying to the world safe passage for everybody to come to the Olympics, that there is no violence, there is no wars during the Olympics. Now, with the Olympics and with all that great media attention, all right, with the enormity of the world TV audience, they become a magnet for groups to protest every sort of perceived injustice around the world. In 1900, the Irish didn't want to compete under the British flag. In 1972 in Munich, the Palestinians murdered Israelis at the Olympic Village. In 76, 22 nations boycotted the Montreal Olympics because the New Zealand rugby team competed in South Africa, which then banned the games because of their apartheid practices. Jimmy Carter boycotted the 1980 games because of the invasion of Afghanistan. 65 nations did not compete, most notably the United States, Canada, West Germany, China, Israel, Chile, and Korea. All right. Carter also threatened a grain embargo and withdrawal of the SALT agreements. But in the end, the only threat he enforced was the Olympic boycott. Had Carter understood the true meaning of Olympianism and the purpose of the games, he might have had better judgment. All right. 25 athletes sued the U.S. Olympic Committee and lost. This was headed by a young, aspiring lawyer, Anita DeFrance, who also spoke before Congress, pleading our case not to boycott the games. All right, tit for tat in 1984, the Eastern Bloc boycotted the LA Olympics. The fact that protesters are drawn to it and the media attention paid to it shows how big and important the games have become. Back to more pleasant topics. All right. Staging is the thing that all Olympians go through. It's a logistical term for when the entire Olympic team assembles together to get their uniforms and be prepped before leaving for the country of origin. We're briefed on the political climate of the nation we're going to, what language to use, what language not to use. Basically, we're told to be good American citizens and not embarrass the United States. It's usually a fun time. Go to the next slide, Jen. And the next slide. We already got through Anita. All right. Mexico, next slide. This is the one that I like. This was at staging before the 76 Olympics, which was up in Lake Placid. And I was lucky enough to have the Jonick twins sitting on my knee for this photo op here. But it's a time when the team assembles and it finally becomes reality. Okay, you've crossed the first hurdle, you've made the Olympic team, and now it's off to compete and see how you can do. All right. How being an Olympian affects your life. Well, this might sound morbid, but for most Olympians, when it comes down to your obituary, it's going to be on your obituary because for some reason they think that's important. All right. The IOC also passed a resolution that you can put OLY behind your name when you're signing things, similar to if you had an MBA or a PhD. All right. Now we're going to have some fun. So I'm going to jump in first. All right. Through a lot of my life, I've been going out and drinking it and having good time with other oarsmen that have competed at a very high level. And one thing we never ever talk about is the races. It's always about the experiences that we have when we get to the Olympics, right? And or any other competition. Not about the racing. It's about the journey and the things that we did. And the first story that I want to throw in there, which kind of resonates with
Baron. Go to Mark. Have they told you?
Baron
hold on, I'm actually on the video
Hooten.
right now on a Zoom call. Hang on.
Are you there?
We're here, Jim.
Okay, good. I heard some background noise. All right. So my thing that resonates with me was, in my first Olympics in 1972. All right. And you got to figure 1972 was still a Cold War. In the apartment buildings in the Bronx, there are all these fallout shelter signs and everything. And in our parochial schools, you always had climb underneath the desk and kiss your ass goodbye because the Russians are going to blow you away. Right. And while walking around the village with my parents, I saw Jabba Altesh, who was the fencing master of both New York Athletic Club and the U.S. Olympic team. Jabba was a Hungarian who escaped Hungary, came to the United States, became a great coach. And
in the village was a giant chessboard where the chess pieces were about 3 feet tall. And their job is wearing his USA sweatsuit, and the Russian is wearing his CCP blues. And I thought, this is what it's all about. You know, these two guys trying to make the world a smaller place. And that's what the Olympics is about, you know, making the world a small place and having a good time. So next, I want to bring up Philadelphia's favorite son, Mike Teti. Mike, you've done it all, you know, spare in the 84 games, bronze medalist in the 88 games, coach of an Olympic gold medalist in 2004 in Greece. You know, you've probably had more experiences than anybody, buddy. So tell us one of your good ones. What does the Olympics mean to you? Mike, are you there?
Yeah, I just
There he goes.
unmuted. Sorry. No, I think the most important thing, and I have to say this because it's being recorded, was I met my wife at the Olympics. So, you know,
Right.
right. And obviously she did a lot better than me, winning 2 gold medals. But I mean, there's lots of experience, sort of what you said. I mean, there's you know, walking in at the opening ceremonies, obviously, you know, a huge thrill. The one story that I would tell is about the opening ceremonies in '88. You know, you say the Olympic oath and all the, you know, and then they release the doves, right, and then they light the flame, right. So we're in the corner of the stadium. You know, the U.S. team was sort of assembled there, and so they released these doves, and then the doves, they all sort of wind up in this cauldron. And then they light the flame, and then all the doves are basically falling down on us like on fire. So that was obviously you didn't get that on film at the Olympic Games, but that did happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, look, you know, I think the cool thing for me, like in 1988, was so we get to the starting line, and we're at the starting line, and there was a delay. And then the German 8 just kind of paddled off the line. And so and everyone's wandering around, like all the country, you know, all the other, what's going on. So anyway, Bill Connect, and Bill Connect gets up on the starting platform, and this is where like Vesper comes home, right? Bill Connect gets up there and he goes, "Hey, Mike, it's going to be about 10 minutes. And then all these athletes are like, who's this guy talking to this guy, Mike? And then Joan Scholl, who was the first female referee, also a Vesper member, she zooms up in her launch and goes alongside the U.S., but she goes, "Mike, good luck." Right? So then there's 2 Vesper people. And then we wound up winning a medal, and who presents us with the medal is Anita DeFrance. So, you know, that was pretty cool. That, you know, that's a memory that I'll always cherish.
I can't see me.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stories. I could go on forever.
Yeah.
Maybe someone else can chime in.
You know, okay, let's get Teresa Bell here. Now, Teresa, you were part of the 96 team and a medalist in the women's lightweight double. That was the first year that the lightweight double was an Olympic event. And now coming into Paris, this will be the last year that we'll have the lightweight doubles as an Olympic event. All right. What do you think about how that all has moved along, and what fond memories do you have?
Well, first of all, I was real excited to have that event come in and be able to participate in the first Olympics and get a medal. It was really thrilling. And on this end of it, I'm sad to see it go, because the light women's double and the lightweight men's double is so incredibly competitive, and you see the margins are just a hair between boats at the finish line, and it's become so thrilling that, like the light men's straight forwards, it's just really a shame to see it go away. So I will definitely have a keen eye watching that and wishing our women's lightweight double, and hopefully there will be a men's lightweight double also do really well with that.
Yeah, those are exciting races, but over
Mhm.
time we have lost other races. We lost the pair width, we lost the 4 width that
Mhm.
Gardner was part of, back in '68. So what kind of fond memories do you have there, Teresa?
Well, I was really excited to have an opportunity to try and make the Olympic team. Rowing was something that didn't come to me until college, and I mean, I was just hooked, and I'd never been so absorbed and fascinated and wanting to excel in anything in my life. And then when I found out that there was, I could keep going and wait, there's a national team, you can compete against other countries, and oh, wait a
Yeah.
minute, Olympics. It's like, oh, and wait a minute, there's an Olympic event for me. It just became my obsession to just go as far as I could go. And when I started, I didn't know how hard enough was enough. Like going into my first races, I didn't know that someone could catch up after 400 meters. Like that wasn't enough water. I didn't know any better. And so I kind of carried that work ethic to with me as I made my first team, and then the Olympic team. And for me, although it was exciting to be part of the Olympic team, um, there was a certain comfort there in that we were competing against people we were familiar with because we competed with them at the World Championships, and being able to compete in our own country, in Atlanta, Georgia. Our
Right.
venue was a little further out, and so we didn't have to worry about changing time zones. It was relatively easy travel for our family and our friends to be there. And it just seemed like a very nice, comfortable home environment to just unleash and excel. So I
Mhm.
I appreciate that opportunity to compete like that and have a majority of friends and family there, and then also to come away with a medal from it. It was really an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, great stuff. Gardner,
Mhm.
you were probably one of the more senior guys on the call tonight, and like Teresa, your event, the 4 width from '68, no longer an event, but obviously it was a big event back in '68 in Mexico when you were there. Also, like Teresa said, most of the guys, in those years were guys that didn't start rowing until they were in college, and they came out of college and made it right to an Olympic team. How was that?
Uh, am I unmuted now? Can you
Yes,
hear me?
you are.
Well, it was different. I really, frankly, came to college having rowed, and I was thoroughly bored with it.
Oh,
I was captain of the football team, and I loved running and throwing and blocking and dashing and crashing and bashing. Oh, it was so much fun playing football. But the University of Pennsylvania didn't have a very good program right during those years, and somebody named Ted Nash kept showing up in my dorm room and leaving his Olympic sweatsuit on my pillow.
uh-huh.
So I ended up going down to the boathouse. The thing I'd like to emphasize is just kind of an interesting thing that I'm sure we all lived with, which was how do you select the best boat? And I'm sure this happens in eights all the time to every coach. And this is essentially the story of Joe Burke and his point system that many of
Yeah.
you may have heard of, and I lived through it. But it was the question. Joe finally figured out that he knew he could get 6 of the best guys, but he wasn't sure whether the last 2 were the best or they should be in the JV or vice versa. So he came up with his point system. Anyway, for the '68 Olympics, he had the point system guys in the boat, but the season was over, and Joe Amlong was next door at Vesper, sort of salivating, trying to get back to the Olympics because he was a gold medalist in '64. And there were a
Right.
bunch of guys like Amlong over there at Vesper who just really wanted to get back to the games. And of course they did. And they were excellent rowers. Well, Joe seat raced Amlong against our bowman. And the interesting thing was that if anybody knows Joe Amlong, he has quite a different personality than many people. and may not fit so well in a college boat. So Joe, in spite of the fact that Amlong might have made us a tiny bit faster, maybe that much faster, said the cohesion of a Penn crew was the thing he wanted to stick with. So he stuck with all Penn guys. Well, 68 was a fast and furious trials race in Long Beach, California, essentially against Penn and Harvard. We were the top crews then, and it was Penn and Harvard. And the way I like to say it rather gloriously is that the University of Pennsylvania was ahead for 2,000 meters, except for the last 4 inches. We lost by a photo finish to Harvard. But it gets to the Joe Burke issue of how then we didn't have national teams. We didn't have an East Coast team, a West Coast team, or a national team. It was just colleges and clubs. So it's kind of Joe Burke's issue of how do you get the best 8 men or women in an 8? And since we lost by that much, the question is, could Joe Amlong have made up 4 inches, the length of your pointer finger, so that our boat would have gone to the Olympics? I don't know. Just one of those questions that I'm sure every coach of a Big 8 wrestles with all the time.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing. Even as we move forward to where we are today, with Ann Goodale coming up next, right? Ann was part of the Beijing crew in 2008 that were gold medalists, and that was a totally different system. That was the camp system. 68 was the last year we had open trials. Yeah. And to your point, Gardner, that's where we needed to go in order to compete. It was an arms race that the rest of the world was getting faster, with these high performance centers that they had. And we had to get the best of the best together and start to put together our dream teams.
Well, I think that 4-inch loss to Harvard, Penn and Harvard neck and neck, the last bit, I think that was what convinced all the coaches that we needed a national team.
Right. And that's what happened.
That's what happened.
Want to jump on the call now?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
I am. I'm here. Hi.
Good to see you. So, why don't you reflect on where we are today with more of our national team and that environment and how it's gotten along and how it's changed. Obviously, it's been successful, at least on the women's side, winning quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, one of the things that we would always say is, thank goodness we only have to race the rest of the world now. Once we were finally selected into our boat, right? We spend the majority of our time training really hard with the people who you're neck and neck with, right? And we're all fighting for seats and we're all on the same team. So to balance that cohesion, which is essential, as we all know, to any good boat, with the direct competition of racing against each other all the time. It's exhausting. It can be certainly stressful, but man, it makes us better rowers. And it was this sigh of relief, not just that I've made the boat when you make a boat, but also that feeling of, oh, good, I get to do this with everybody for sure, and I know because we have absolutely put everything in to our training, because that's what's asked of you, right, at that level, that to be able to turn around and use that collectively is just so powerful. And much like Gardner had the story about, losing by 4 inches, my first race on the national team with the national team in 2005, we lost by 0.2 of a second, right? And we came in 4th by 0.2 of a second. And one of the probing questions that we got earlier was, it's not all winning. And we certainly know that. And oftentimes those close calls or those defeats are some of the ones that shape us the most. And for me, that I will still say that the most important race of my career was that race in 2005 in Japan, where we lost a medal by 0.2 of a second, because it totally, and Teresa said it too, actually, it completely shapes your work ethic, thinking, oh my gosh, I lost a medal on the world stage by a blink of an eye.
Right.
What would I have had to do to give that back or to get that back? And then you divide that by 8 rowers by each stroke. You're like, okay, I can go a little bit harder. Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the women that were in that boat, there was a group of us who just trained with this work ethic that was like, can we go a little bit harder? Yeah, let's do it. And needless to say, the next year in 2006, we came back and broke a world record and won the world championship. And then the US national team didn't stop winning until, or the women's 8 didn't stop winning until long after I'd retired. So it's pretty incredible. And I love hearing how so many of our stories actually are so similar, because even though we all have individual experiences, there is
it's interesting what you're saying. I mean, within the camp system, everybody knows what it's like. It's a meat grinder, and you're competing against your best friends day after day, and then you make a team, right? And then you win a gold medal, and then the next year you've got to go through the same meat grinder again, hoping the biggest team in your career, the Olympic team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible, and that's why the experience is heightened so much, because it's just every 4 years. It's not a world championship. It's an Olympics, and there is something to that. Jen Wesson said it when she got on, as a kid, you're keyed into the Olympics, and that's the biggest thing in the world. And it remains the biggest thing in the world, drawing the biggest audiences. And,
it's in truth, I when we got to the Olympics, and actually it was one of the final parting words from Tom at the time, which was, "This is just another race." And we really intentionally thought about it as not making it bigger than just another race, because that anxiety, even though we all knew it, right? We were watching the Olympics on the TV over there, and we were just going to do what we knew how to do. And coming back from, after winning and coming back to the dock, Tom said something along the lines of, "It was not just another race. You won the Olympics." That celebration. And obviously we knew what we were doing, but that balance between making it too big and keeping yourself just able to do what you know how to do without letting the nerves and everything get too much.
Right. I think from a coaching standpoint, it's really neat when one of your athletes wins the trials and they come back to the dock, and you get to say, well, now you're an Olympian.
Right.
It's like, whoa, that's really, really something. All right. We Strotbeck on the phone here tonight. Strotbeck, you were in the pair in 84 and in the quad in 88. You want to chime in here and let us know how things have progressed in your life and how things were back in the day, how the uniforms were.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can see you.
There I am. Oh my goodness, look at that hunk.
He was, man.
188 pounds. I'm still 6'2". And there's 188 pounds in me somewhere.
Yeah.
So do I not have my video on?
Yeah, you're on. I'm looking at you.
Oh, okay. So, you guys talked about the grind of the camp. I just want to say, I went through a grueling camp in 1988.
Oh, Jesus.
And it was, it was a grueling camp to make the quad. And then not only did I have to do it once, but I had to do it twice, because we got called back from Europe, as something that happens often in rowing in the United States. The athletes that didn't make the quad sued for another time. But my point is, that grueling camp was, who was my coach, Jim?
I guess I was.
You were. So he put us through not only hell for like 2 months, but then we had to come back and do it for another 6 weeks before we departed for Seoul.
Right.
Right. But in the end.
And through all the seat racing, John, if I remember right, you were the only guy never to lose a race. You must have been doing something right.
I've heard that rumor, but I won't. Yeah. I don't say that.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I agree with you. there's too much litigation when it comes to this stuff, and
No, it's nuts, and it's it's not only rowing, it's team sports in general in America, and it's the weakness of the USOC to stand up. They just want to maintain the brand and ignore any negative press. So be it,
Right.
But
Right.
I have had some great Olympic memories. I mean, and to be honest with everybody, I have a lot of friends from the Olympics, and a lot of you are on this call. My training mate for years was Mike Teti, one German, one Italian, one port, one starboard. We tore up the Schuylkill for a whole lot of years next to Crump and Lyons and had a ball.
Yep.
But in 84, made the 84, raced in the 84 team and raced in the 88 team and made both teams through the trials process. Although, no, actually the quad was a camp, but when we got selected in 88, we were then challenged by the guys that's why we had to come back. We
That's
had to
right.
come back. The guys that made us come back from Europe, which cost us an awful lot of time. We had to race them we didn't have to race them in a trial, right, Jim? But I think we said, what the hell? If you're better than us, and if you beat us in a trial, so be it.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't. And that was it. But my most memorable, or one of my most memorable parts of the Olympics, there's two of them. One that was non-rowing, which was the Olympic ceremonies in 84, which was post the boycott. And I think the spirit around the 84 Olympics was a little higher from the American perspective because we hadn't been there for 8 years. And there were a lot of athletes on the team who had been declined the ability to compete in 1980, but they had made the 84 team. So they were really in high spirits.
Yeah.
It was cool to be part of the team and be equals with Michael Jordan, Carl Lewis, I forget the hurdler, the 400 hurdler.
Edwin Moses.
Edwin Moses, just hanging out with those guys, and everybody was an equal, which I think is a beautiful thing in the Olympic Village. You're an equal, and I believe and I hope that still happens today. But my one of my fondest memories of the Olympics, Mike DeRuff and I won the pair trial. We were the last guys cut from Korzeniowski's camp. I on port and he on starboard. And we linked together, got in a pair, went to the pair trials, and won the pair trials in a very highly subscribed contest. I think there were 42 pairs, the world pair from the previous year, and like 6 other pairs. But Dave and I were dark horses. We won. We go to the Olympics. We go out to our first race, our first Olympic race, and we're smack dab in the middle of the course at the 1,000 meter line of our heat, and we see this enormous, probably 4-foot square orange block go up behind our starting block. And I look around, and Dave's the one responsible for our time. I'm steering, but I say, what the hell is that thing? And he says, oh shit, we're late. So we were assessed a penalty for being late. We were 1,000 meters away. 1,000 meters away from the start. So we had to row fast because we only had 5 minutes to get there and turn around and get into the blocks. So we go in basically at AT into the start line. We decide that we're not going to go until, because we've been assessed a penalty, we're not going to go until every other boat leaves. So we leave the start of the heat, my first Olympic race, his first Olympic race ever. A little tired, nervous as can be, and waiting for everybody else to go. So I think we started like at least a half length down, knowing what was in front of us. And I mean, in the end, we advanced straight to the semi. We didn't have to go through the reps. But, all the stress that goes into making an Olympic team. And I learned something from Jack Kelly too, from, JB Kelly too. He said, 50% of winning is just showing up. And I remember that thought coming into my head as we take off at the start late, thinking that we almost missed the opportunity to show up. So that was an interesting experience. And
Yeah.
I never showed up to a race late again. So, but it was Dural's fault. It was his fault. I was steering.
All right. We got Mike Wherley with us here. Mike, are you around? Mike was on the 2004 games in both Sydney and Greece. Another Philadelphia guy. Are you there, Mike?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So what kind of fond memories do you have?
Well, first, I just want to say thanks for everybody getting together. It's great to be with this group and hear the history that you put out there for us, Jim. Appreciate that. I would say that the Olympics are, when I went to Sydney, the best memories I had were from the opening ceremony by far. And in Athens, we didn't get to go to the opening ceremony because we were just staying a little bit too far away from the scene, being out in Skinniest and all that. And it really was a big letdown, because I feel like the opening ceremonies is where, every single athlete is optimistic. They know they're not all going to win, but they all still have their chance to do their best ahead of them, and so it's such a unique atmosphere to be there with there's so much anxiety, but there's also so much, hope and energy in that building for those many hours. I mean, it's so many hours waiting to go in, and then you go in, and it's just, to me, that's an experience I'll never forget. And we got to meet some really famous people, and I love those memories. One of them was, this was in 2000, when the Williams sisters were like 20 and 21 years old or something. And I was a big tennis fan, always have been. And so I'm going around trying to meet all the famous people and getting pictures. And Jeff Klepacki was sort of we were doing it together. So we would take the picture of, the other person with the famous person, and then we trade so that we get all these pictures. Well, yeah. We get in front, all of a sudden I'm standing there talking to Serena and Venus Williams, and Jeff is nowhere to be found. And I'm like, who's going to take the picture? And so I just turned to Venus and I say, Venus, can you take the picture? And she looked at me like, are you serious? You're asking me to take the picture? I'm like, yeah, I'm asking you to take the picture. But it was just really funny. But yeah, I would say that the opening ceremonies is something that, no matter how many times you've heard about it, until you're there, it's just incredible.
It never gets old. I felt bad. It was the same thing when we were in Barcelona in 92, being out in Banyoles, so far away from the stadium, pretty much nobody got to go to the opening ceremonies. I think of another story at the 72 Olympics. We were outside the stadium in Germany getting ready to walk in, and the U.S. uniform were these white jackets with blue pinstriping, like stitching in it, and red pants. And we're talking to these two middle-aged guys, and they had white jackets with red stitching and the pants, right? And we realized these were two Texas millionaires that had the uniforms copied so they could walk into the Olympic Stadium with the team. All right. That's funny. Gardner, you'll like this, because your buddy Ted Nash, he got called into service, and he grabbed these two guys by the throat, and he got a cop over there and escorted them out of the place.
Can I chime in briefly with something following up on Mike and Mike Wherley and famous people?
Certainly.
Well, we used to go down to practice, and we go to the bus to get on board to go to practice, and all the Mexican kids would hang around. This was 1968, wanting autographs. And I was a 19-year-old and really proud to be an Olympian. So I'd signed Gardner Cadwalader. And, after 2 days of that, I noticed all the kids were saying, well, who the hell is that? I don't recognize him at all, which is rather disappointing. So I decided that I was going to take on the signature of somebody else who was well known there as a heavyweight boxer, and I started signing George Foreman for the next 3 days, and they loved it. All the kids are crowding around me wanting George Foreman's autograph. So if anybody knows him, I'd like to meet him someday to apologize and confess.
That's great. That's great.
Well, wait a minute. Gardner, John Strotbeck here.
Yeah. Hi, John.
I've known you for 40 years. I want to say that you bear a striking resemblance. You have the same hairline. You're about the same size.
Well, the kids
got
thought
the same
so.
Smile. I mean, it's good by me.
Well, you want my autograph? You want my autograph?
No, too old.
Thank you, John.
Right. Michiel Bartman, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Oh, Mike. All right, Mike, give us the feel of things from a Dutch perspective. All right. I mean, do the Dutch take it as serious as the Americans? I mean, is it as a big a deal there as it is in the rest of the world?
Oh yeah.
No, not really. Like rowing is a very small sport. Doesn't get a lot of airtime. Well, it's similar like the US, but the funny thing is that, like, say in the Netherlands at a certain point, Olympians could lease a car from Volkswagen, and then on the side of the door it said like Olympic athletes drive Volkswagen. So when you're driving on the highway, yeah, you're say in the right lane, and then a car pulls up next to you, slows down, takes a peek inside, and then you see the head nodding, like, yeah, I don't know that person. And that happened to me like a lot of times. And I think only after, like, my third Olympic medal and being the chair of the Dutch Olympic Committee, that's when I finally got, say, more recognition. But before that, you're not a well-known person at all.
It must have been
but
really
the cool thing.
Must have been
the cool thing was this: like when we got back, like in '96 in Atlanta, like just like Anna is saying, it's just a rowing race, right? But the experience is really happening after. So when we got back in the Netherlands, the Crown Prince, who gave me plenty of hugs at the podium, who's now King of the Netherlands. So we go back, we meet the Queen, we have like a parade in like a horse and carriage, and then you have like thousands of people, non-rowers obviously, celebrating your victory, and that was for the first time to me that like it's such a special event. All those people that you don't know, they watch your race, and they are there to cheer for you, and then it really hit me that like it was so much bigger than just 220 strokes.
It's a national thing. Your people take pride in you. I think that's universal around the world.
Yeah, but you don't realize that. You're so in your own bubble. Like everything is dedicated to like your optimal performance. And like I had many conversations, like before I was successful, like why do you row? And then suddenly you're successful, and then it's like, oh great, I kind of like the time that you put in is justified. But yeah, it is a strange happening still. Like sometimes I walk with people, and they say, do they realize that like they're standing next to an Olympian or right, like a gold medalist? Probably not. Nobody recognizes you, and that's the fun part. Like it's always funny, kind of like how certain things just work out, and yeah, I'm happy. Like I'm happy to be coaching now young athletes. We went back for our spring break training trip to Lake Lanier, where like I won the gold medal, and we went to the Olympic Park in Atlanta, and they were super excited, to see everything Olympic and hear my stories. So
yeah,
it's fun.
But as you were saying, for oarsmen, for people in our sport, it's never about the media. We're never on the news. We're never famous, right? It's only within our small circle in the world we're recognized. Yeah, John.
Well,
John, you're muted.
Wait a minute, James. Mr. Dietz?
Yes, sir.
Weren't you on the cover of Time magazine?
No, it was Life. But still, it's not like a pro sport, right? But all of us, Michiel, all of us have friends because of the Olympics and rowing around the world. Every one of us has friends in different nations, and I think that's a special thing, tying that circle even tighter.
Well, I have a funny story. So when we won our gold medal in Atlanta, we as a boat, I think say that the Olympics really start when you're done competing. You are able to let go, how you can do kind of fun things. So one of the things that you do is just you go to other races or matches. And so we went to a baseball game between the US and the Netherlands, and we were sitting in the grandstands. We had Olympic gear on, and at a certain point a woman sits in and said hey, are you Olympic athletes? Yeah, we are. Oh, what did you do? And rowing. Oh, so one guy said hey, show your medal. So I showed my medal to her, and then other people started noticing it, and then more people started noticing it. And before I knew it, I was signing hats, tickets, T-shirts. And then I got on the Jumbotron, and then I was standing up and waving. And then security came, and then they said sir, you're disrupting the game. You have to get out of the stadium. And as I was walking up, to to get out of the stadium, I had really followers, right? People were following me. I was standing behind the fence, and people were taking pictures of me. And that's when I thought, this is how it's like to be famous. And I thought, that's fine for now. I don't want to be that every single day.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, you could have been like Gardner and started George Foreman's name. All right, Sue Morgan, you're here, and I think Laura Staines is also on the call. Now, you guys were both on the 76 team in Montreal, and we staged in Lake Placid. And I thought the interesting thing about that Olympics was we were the only team in the world that drove to the Olympics. I can remember we left Lake Placid in vans with New York State troopers following us. The entire interstate was closed. We drove over the Peace Bridge. We were picked up by the Canadian Mounted Police and zoomed right up to Montreal. I remember that as one of those experiences. Do you guys remember that stuff?
Sure. And the first stop was actually at the place where they handed us out all that uniform that year was pretty bad.
Yeah.
And so those were a lot of my memories. I was like deer in the headlight. I didn't grow up around rowing at all. I started my last year of college, and so I just had wandered east to try my luck. I really wanted to row in nationals at Princeton in '75. That was my goal. Ended up rowing in the Olympics. So everything about it was just new and fun, and there's certainly a lot of pin trading, and that was that got us face to face with people from all over the world. You guys all remember that change. And,
Yeah.
you know, you got your pins, you got your, so in Plattsburgh, you got your girdle, you got your nylons, you got
Yeah.
your this and that. John still has my late husband was a coach of the women's four, and he still has a package of unopened pajamas for the men. It's in the trunk. I'm getting ready to move, so I'm just going through everything, and we're just.
I can remember at those first Olympics, anything that ever had the Olympic rings on it, whether it was Bounty beef stew, sunglasses, or whatever, you got that as part of your kit. And they gave you big boxes, and you packed that up at staging and you sent it home. You didn't even bring it to the Olympics.
Right.
Oh, you got your luggage there. You
Yeah.
got your Samson
Suitcase. And
Yeah.
we actually used it to go places. It's full of stuff. I haven't looked in it for decades. I haven't looked at it yet. It's like, who knows what's in there? I do have
Let's look.
the Olympic
Let's look.
hair dryer if you want a little asbestos. I'm sure this.
no need for it.
I don't either. I never use it, but John saved everything. And you know, I can complain. On the other hand, then you come across stuff like this when
Right.
you're digging
Right.
in. So
what are your memories? What do you think of most? The opening ceremonies, the closing ceremonies, eating in the cafeteria, you know?
I think the racing was, our races were, we never raced much. We raced in the trials, and wouldn't you say so, Laura? That we really never raced. So the
The
first
only
race
competition we ever had was with the men that we were training with.
That's it.
That's probably why you got good.
But and even so, I mean, we really weren't on the line with starts and this and that and the other. So our we didn't do that great, but we did, make the petites because there were 14 entries. And when we did the petites, I think most of the time we were behind, but in the end we won, and we had the fourth fastest time of the day, including the finals. And they were back to back, just minutes apart. So,
But I think that really shows how teamwork works, because Sue and I had intuitiveness. We didn't talk. We just picked up the pace, and we knew the only thing we had to do was go fast.
That's right. When in doubt, go fast.
Time.
But I just wanted to interject some of the fun things, just to piggyback on a few things that John and a few other members were saying. We met so many wonderful people at the opening ceremonies. I remember meeting Dennis Conner and Con Finley. And after I retired from rowing, I picked up sailing, and we ended up buying Dennis Conner's boat.
Wow.
It's a small world. It was wonderful. We so many fabulous friends, and we stayed friends forever. Thank you, Sue.
And I still row with many of my 1976 teammates in the Head of the Charles every year. We're getting a little slower, but then we finally hit 70. So we, there's Aunt Jonick, Nancy Storrs rode with us, God rest her soul. And I just a whole Beth and two Gear sisters. They're our regulars, and Sue Hingley, and we just get together and we just do this thing. And I also row masters, and I run into people from every year. I'm on a team, an international team that Karen Constant from Vesper runs, and so there are a lot of Olympians from past years from Germany and Holland, and we just race together and row together against others, and it's a wonderful world. It's I guess, relatively small world compared to baseball or basketball, but it's a quality world, that's for sure, and it keeps me going. So,
hey, Sue, I want to see you out here this summer so you and Laura can get back in that boat and row over to the lobster trap.
Yes, Laura and I have rowed a pair. We really did great on the rubber ducky, right?
Lotion is the motion, ladies. You keep moving, you keep moving. All right, we got to finish up here. I want to get Brett Gorman in as we finish up. It's getting on with time. Brett was a member of the 2008 Olympic team and is the chair of the U.S. Rowing Pathways Athlete Development Program. Brett, you're probably closer to anything we know about the Olympics right now with what you have done and what you're doing presently. Tell us your fond memories, and then tell all the people on this call how we can help our current Olympic team become more successful and with our support.
Great. Thanks, Jim. And I'm so honored to be here with so many amazing alums. And thank you so much for having me and for putting, and it's so well timed with today being podium day.
Those are those red, blue ones. They made them, you know, they had the different texture.
And mute. But yeah, it's well timed with podium day today. And, you know, it's an exciting time right now. There's always that exciting period after, you know, we've talked about the meat grinder that we all go through and how that period can be so difficult. And we're just past that period where now we know who's going to the Olympics, or we know who's going to final Olympic qualification in a couple weeks. I'm excited. I'm going to be joining our athletes over in Europe for that. And hopefully we have more dreams being made come true.
Got a blue and a red.
At the Last Chance Regatta. It's a really exciting time.
Red, white, and blue or something.
With our new chief of high performance, Josie Verdonschot, another Dutchman. And we've been focusing on small boats. We've been focused on diversifying our talent across, across the country, a decentralized high performance training group plan. So I think it's a really exciting time where we're seeing a lot of changes come through. The team, I think right now, is being very well trained with one training plan that's stemming from one centralized location, which is awesome. And sorry, you're gonna get a little hand creep coming in. There it is. Apologies. But yeah, so I think we're well positioned to do really well in Paris this summer. And of course, like, as we all know, it's not cheap to go to the Olympics. It's very expensive. Our development team at US Rowing has been doing an awesome job. I think last I checked, we're pretty close to the podium goal, but I'm sure you will all be receiving more communications as we get closer to Paris, especially if we qualify more boats. You know, the more boats we qualify, which we all want for, the more money it takes to send those athletes to support them. So we really appreciate all you do. I focus on our pipeline, the athletes that are developing for the Olympics, our U19 camps, our under 23 camps, and how can we connect those to what's happening at the senior level right now, which can be really difficult, and it's a challenge, but I'm enjoying it. But thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, well, looking at the Olympic trials just last week, it looks like we have a lot of depth on the team. So hopefully with the folks we have on the call tonight, we'll raise a lot of money because, again, a lot of those boats that have to go through the Last Chance Regatta, we want to see them get there and have that great experience. So thanks for all that you do with US Rowing, and take care of that little hand that's scratching your back.
Of course, for the first hour, I was totally fine. But the second I hit unmute, they have a radar for that.
Yeah.
Dad, former national team rower Sean Gorman took her away, so we're good. But thank you. And I think it's exciting to see that we're having boats being well supported through the trial system as well. And we're excited to see what they do at both final Olympic qualification. We have a big contingent that will be going to the World Cup in Lucerne, World Cup 2. Excited for that. And then, of course, on to Paris.
Yeah, it's coming up quick. It's coming up real quick. Those kids got to be super excited. Great. All right. I think I'm going to turn it over to Jen now. And if there's anything on the chat box coming in, we can finish up with that.
There aren't any questions in the chat room right now, but if anybody wanted to unmute themselves and ask questions of any of our Olympians or of US Rowing, you can chime on in.
Oh, I coughed and I'm on. I think one very interesting subject that we've all lived through is our good luck, bad luck stories. And I mentioned my 4-inch loss at one time, but there are other stories like that that are really interesting that show the high level of competition that we've all been in. We either made it by just a little tiny bit or we lost it by a tiny bit. And there's so many stories that we all have about that, trying hard and not quite getting it.
Yeah. But there again, Gardner, that's what I feel is a big part of the whole Olympic movement there. As it says in the Olympic Creed, it's not about the winning, it's about the struggle. It's about making it. And if you're on that journey and you come up short, you've come up short of against some of the top people in the world. And just having known that you competed against them and having those people as your friends, it makes the journey worthwhile.
Well, about 30 or 40 years after I was cut from one team, one of the selection coaches came up to my wife and said, Gardner, cutting you was the biggest mistake we made that year because you were the difference between the silver we won and the gold medal we should have won. And that, to me, brings me back to the Joe Burke theory of how do you get the guys, women in the boat who are the best for that particular race? It's still a quandary. I don't think any coach ever has the answer. You get very close to the answer, but it's a dilemma that we'll probably never solve.
No, I don't think you really can solve that. If it, the only way you can solve it is to have all the boats go to trials boats. But is that going to produce the fastest boat? All right, that's the way to take the subjectivity out of it. At some point within the CAM system, there has to be that subjectivity where the coach is thinking of what Joe Burke was thinking about. Is about the camaraderie of the team? Is this unit that's a cohesive team going to be better than putting the faster guy in that's not part of that unit?
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah. Jim, I'm so glad that we're bringing this topic up because I think, we're celebrating the Olympians that are getting ready to go to Paris.
I spent the last hour on the phone with Laura Connect.
Within our system who, they just experienced the biggest heartbreak of their careers. And I'm on the phone with a lot of them because I'm actually we are going to have a Henley campaign for athletes that are going to continue for LA and for the next cycle. And it's like, okay, who's ready to gear up? And it's a hard emotional journey. And it's not just about those that make the boat. And, I appreciate being named an Olympian, but I was the alternate for Anna's crew. I just missed it. And I hope that all athletes are granted the gift of perspective over time, no matter how their journey, whether they got on that podium or just missed it, whatever it is, that I hope that they all are granted the gift of perspective.
Yeah.
I have a question about what the Olympics has done for so many of you what happened after the Olympics. Some of you met your wives, your husbands, John Strotbeck. I think that the Olympics was the gateway or the start of boathouse sports, if I remember that story correctly, that put you in a direction that I don't know if you had thought about. I wonder, what kind of stories come as a result of the Olympic involvement, how it either changed your lives or it put you in directions that you had never anticipated.
Well, it's the reason why I'm here in the United States. I lost against Mike's crew and Mike Wherley, and I was rowing the head of the Charles, and one thing led to another when I was actually visiting Philadelphia, and I learned about, say, the open position for the high performance coach at Vesper, and through Corso, and then through Mike, who is a life member at Vesper, that's how the connection came for me to become the new head coach at Vesper. And I don't think that would have happened, say, if I didn't know Mike Teti or Chris Corso and had the ambition to start something new. So, I'm grateful, very grateful for the journey that I have, embarked and be part of such a great community here in Philadelphia.
I think one thing that carries with us, and it kind of is what comes first, the egg or the chicken for this one, but the determination and the work ethic and the team ethic that we all have that got us to the Olympics carries through, right? And that's our innate characteristics, the innate characteristics that we all have. And so I think that certainly carries through in everything that we do. But for me, one of the biggest lessons that I learned in my Olympic journey was that the only thing that matters is this stroke that I'm taking. And I can't worry about the last 500 when I'm in the first 500. And I think that just keeps carrying through. And one of my favorite things to do is to talk to young athletes and to talk to young people. It doesn't even matter if they're athletes or not, or rowers or not, but we all learn so many lessons through our journey, the good, the bad, the ugly, to do some really amazing things. And those things carry through in no matter what you're doing, whether it's raising children or coaching or, running a multi-million-dollar business. Like it all is there.
Yep, you never get to stop. And already no timeouts. You have to know you just keep going to the end. And if you have a bad day, you just got to make it better.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Good. All right, back to you, Jen, I guess.
Any other questions? Mike Chipolone, I see that you're in here, and do you have a good story you want to share with us? I don't know if he's able to, I don't see him on the line. He might be on via phone and not be able to.
Oh, yeah.
He's on mute.
Mike might be one of those guys that does not know how to unmute himself. I can't see him. Any other final questions for our group tonight? Well, this has been wonderful. I truly thank each of you for being here this evening. And I can follow up with so many of the things that our Olympians have said tonight. But just even Anna's last words there, I think the connection and making those connections to young people about, being able to stay current on the stroke that you're on, and not think about that past and the future too much even, but be present and show up as John Strotbeck said, is so important. And I think, that's why we're all here tonight, right? We know how much this sport has brought to each of us at so many different levels. And I think that, we're extra blessed in this sport because, we've been able to row next to one another. And you don't see that often in other sports. So we'll plenty more to share in the future. And we're going to cut it here, but we again thank each of you and thank Jim for pulling this together this evening and moderating us through this great conversation. Let's all stay connected and stay in touch, because we know we're watching one another and wishing each other the best. Let's root for Team USA in 99 days, right? And we hope that everyone stays healthy and safe and has a great few months ahead. So thank you all for being here.
Closing note, let's pay it forward and help the next generation keep going like we did. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
You.